Good evening. Happy Thursday. Happy Mystery Wine Blind Tasting Day. A fun one, for sure, as it is each and every week that we get a chance to do this. Very excited to be with all of you this evening. If you're joining, please do let me know. And I look forward to hearing your insights, thoughts, comments, perspectives on this wine this week. We are in the midst of a great week in this time of year, the week that everyone comes out to celebrate the loves in their lives, and we get a chance to serve those guests and to be around just a general happy, delighted, uplifted mood, and that's certainly coursing through the restaurant this evening and was here certainly on Tuesday as well. So a little lovely red to go with the Valentine's month, February. And I think this one in particular is starting to tell me something about where it's from, just right out of the gate. So as you join and you have that experience too, please share that. But we've got Trish and Andy and Kathy here back with us, which is great. Candy and Kevin too. Welcome, guys. Wonderful to have you here too. I tell you, it's been a couple days of just tremendous wine tasting. I was in DC yesterday for a series of tastings with some trade events that were put on, and had some extraordinary wines, and then had a fantastic tasting today that will result in wines that will join our list. We had a great tasting with Megan from Roanoke Valley, and then another wonderful tasting with two great friends, Olivier Daubresse, who represents a series of wines from France on the company Vini France, and we had some wines from Jonas Gustafsson, who brings in just tremendous Spanish wines. And he kind of stumped us, or really created a new category within a category for us for Albarino, and had some older Albarino from Rias Baixas that was intentionally made older, aged longer on the fine lees. It was a really exceptional wine. So just a series of really cool wines, and then some 100-plus-year-old vine Carignan from Minervois that was just extraordinary. So a little Syrah there too that will make its way into our Syrah tasting. I think there are a few spots left if you're interested in joining us next week. That will be on Wednesday, so a little less than a week away. We'll taste now, I think, 7 Syrahs, because one of them today was just exceptional. And then we'll have dinner with 3 different Syrahs or Shirazes from around the world. That's available, and then in March we'll be doing a couple of different events. Those are out, I think, available on the website too. So enough of that as we're getting going. Kristen's joining us here. Hi. Welcome. And Chris Pearmond, yes, I agree. Olivier is awesome. Dessert wines, yes. Yeah. In fact, he had a little bit of Rang and Tan Sélection de Grand Noble from Alsace Riesling that we picked up. So 98, which is pretty exciting, and excited to see where that's going to be. But that's here now too. But if you have the wine in front of you, let's begin to look at it. If you don't, I'll try to give you that visual here via the camera, and you can use our comments to get through that. But Sarah, welcome, and hello back to you. So when you look at this wine, what do you see right off the bat? What's the general character of this wine? It's red. We know it's red, and that helps to tell you a little bit about what this isn't. So it isn't rosé or white, and that takes that out. It has a lightish red character to it, so I wouldn't imagine this would be port, but it could be a fortified wine, and I don't think we probably would be tasting one, but nevertheless, already just by looking at it and from a distance even, you know things about this wine, and that's the beauty of this process of kind of cutting away first what it isn't, and then beginning to focus on what it might be, and then finding your way to an educated guess, or maybe even better than a guess, an educated evaluation of what the wine is. So as you're looking at it, it looks to be what color? You know, Candy, you're chiming in. Thank you for that. Mark Smith, hello. Yeah, we'll see you soon. I think we'll see you this weekend, right? Thin sheets, no legs, ruby red color. Great. So what is Candy mentioning there if you're just joining us for the first time or haven't heard those terms before? She's taken the glass and she's looking at the color, and it's kind of got this ruby red color to it. You can kind of tilt it on its side and look over the top of it, and ideally if you have a white piece of paper underneath it, that's an excellent way to just evaluate the color without having other colors imparted or to impact the actual color of the wine. That ruby red character, and then you give it a little swirl, And in that swirl, it's going to create a layer for the top layer of where the swirl went. And then when it comes down, if it comes down in a way that's noticeable, perceptible, you have what could be formed as tears as they run down, and then do they stay and do they establish a leg? And what that may indicate for you is viscosity in the wine, and viscosity in the wine can be or is achieved from some form of sugar in the grape, i.e., a ripeness in the grape that then is fermented to a dryness, and the more viscosity that you have here, the thicker the leg, the slower it moves, the more it establishes, the higher potential alcohol you have, or you could have residual sugar and have some form of syrupiness. And so I'm getting a little bit more, maybe it's my glass, but I'm getting fast running tears that are holding up. So there's a little bit of alcohol here, but not a tremendous amount. Like, this isn't also staining. If you get a whole bunch of pigmentation and those tears actually have color to them, it would be a thicker skinned grape potentially, with more extraction. So this is in that ruby red color and that little relative lightness, no staining in those tears. Indicates we're probably looking at a lighter to medium body wine and a grape variety that has a reddish character. That's not a lot to know. It doesn't necessarily help you figure out exactly what this wine is, but it also helps you figure out that it's probably not a single varietal Petit Verdot. So we're in that camp on sort of the lighter to medium spectrum than it is the medium to heavy spectrum, right? So, Chris, I don't know about, yeah, I'm not sure about this with Dungeness crab and corn casserole, but you know the adage, if you're enjoying the wine and the dish, they go together. And so they don't have to be necessarily affinities for each other, but yeah, I don't know that I would pair this given the choice. However, Dungeness crab is pretty much heavenly, so if you have that on the table, you're doing well. All right, so from a visual standpoint, no sparkles, no bubbles, nothing floating in it. It's clear. As you tilt it and you look from the rim to the core, is there a major variation in color from the rim to the core of the wine? And not tremendously, right? There's no real brown layer. There's a lighter quality to the rim. I mean, that's just always going to be somewhat the case because the wine dissipates as it heads to the rim, and there's less volume there to look through, but there's a little bit of a watery rim, and that watery rim can be an indication of some alcohol. And that alcohol, we see a touch in the legs and tears, but you know, again, not massive. And I don't see a whole bunch of variation from the inside to the outside of the rim, and so I don't think we're looking at something that's terribly old, right? So that's another thing you can learn by just looking at the wine. If there isn't a tremendous variation, you're generally probably talking about more of a youthful wine. And so, recapping, right? We've got a red color, we've got sort of a ruby red color, we've got some viscosity but not a major amount. We're looking at a light to medium bodied red just by way of appearance, and a younger wine, 3 to 5 years of age, 2 to 5 years of age right now, and that's before we even smelled it. So let's smell it, and again, we're always looking for a few things: fruit, earth, and wood. What kind of fruit? What's the character of the fruit? What's the quality of the fruit? What's the state of the fruit? And then earth, and earth can be a whole range of things, from that sort of minerality, sea spray element, to crushed rocks, to gravel, to forest floor, to bark, to leather, to tobacco, things of that sort. And then running up into wood, and wood being sometimes the actual smell of some woods like cedar, but you also will pick up things that are spice in orientation, and so vanillin elements and cloves and holiday spices, and all of those elements coming from the wood that the wine is aged in, and most particularly the treatment of that wood prior to the wine going into it, i.e. the charring or toasting of those barrels usually adds some of that spice layer to it. A more youthful oak will have more of a prominent display of those characteristics. Something that's been aged or has had multiple fills or has had wine in them for multiple years has extracted a lot of that out of it and will not be as much of a signature. So, Veronica, plum and a slight hint of hibiscus. That's awesome. Wonderful. I love that descriptor. So a little bit of a florally note and some plum. Cloves for candy. Yes, okay, great. So some fruit and some wood. So from fruit and wood How about anything earthy? Anything earthy coming out? Hmm. There's a quality here that's, I think it's the wood more than anything else. It has a dollop of a wood signature, that clove element there for sure. There is a roasted, toasted quality that is here. There's a like almost a smoky meatiness there too, a cured smoked meat. Hmm. Kind of a hickory element, kind of that's hiding behind, or is at least standing behind, maybe not hiding, the fruit quality here. That is sort of dark plum note, some cherry note, right? So red and black fruit, maybe red plum. Okay, so from that side, right, those descriptors help us to know what it's not. I don't think this is, you're right, a very big kind of structured wine. Like I said before, probably not a single varietal Tannat or a Petit Verdot or maybe a Malbec, right? But this is Merlot, certainly. Could we be talking about Italian varietal Sangiovese? Could we talk about Barbera or Dolcetto? Veronica, you're picking up on an earthy note. Maybe, is it you who are picking up on that, or is it the mycelium that are controlling your brain to think that that's what you're smelling? If you've been watching The Last of Us, I have not seen that yet, but I've heard about it and just fascinated by that whole world of mycelia and the network that exists that we're all emulating in our own use and creation of the internet. They had the internet originally, right? So, yeah, I like there's a little bit of an earthy kind of mushroomy note too, and there's both sort of a sautéed mushroom element, so the caramelization, the Maillard reaction of the proteins in mushroom, and then also a little bit of fresh mushroom, but that's also kind of hanging out behind the wood notes and I think the fruit notes. Okay, great. So it's a little bit of earth, more fruit, and a definite touch of wood, we think. Let's taste this wine and see if that's what we taste, if we can verify all the things we've just noted by way of the appearance and the nose. Take a moment and before you dive into the fruit, earth, and wood, the few evaluation on the palate, what does it feel like, this wine? What's the texture like? So when we talk about texture in the wine, it's coming from the alcohol levels. So more alcohol, generally a richer, rounder feel in the mouth. It's coming from the skins and the contact with the skins and tannin. And it's coming from the acidity that's in the wine and the perception of how that acidity lifts, frames, elongates the experience on the palate. And so this wine, is it light, medium, more robust? Is it skim milk, 2% milk, whole milk? Where does this come? And what's the texture like? A couple of you are already venturing to say that it has some medium tannins. Thank you, Candy. And Rebecca's saying it's light and smooth. Yeah. The tannins are there, but they're not aggressive, are they? They're finer. I think about tannin in a lot of ways in terms of what you would envision putting in your mouth to create that kind of experience. Is it sand? Is it gravel? Is it cotton candy? Is it silk? Is it long, thin strands of something? Silky pasta? What is the tannin experience like? And when I'm using those other descriptors, it's not anything to do with flavor, but more about the textural experience. And so medium body candy, you're kind of saying more along the lines of 2%? Yeah, I think so. If you've had a very, very light Pinot Grigio, for example, that's nearing on water, and that's kind of where you'd find light or skim milk, right? This is not full medium. Like if you give a broad breadth to medium, this could be in the medium category. but light to medium. It's got a real delicate quality up front. Like the first, almost I'd say, what, 2/3 of the experience in the palate is lighter than the last third, and the last third is where the tannin kind of presents itself and adds a little bit of volume and helps to extend the experience. It creates a little length in the perception of the wine. So red character on the body by way of ruby, lighter in profile, some alcohol, but not a ton. I definitely don't feel a burn in the back, do you? Italian style feel or in the mouth? Yeah, I think there's a reason to consider that, and that's where I was headed next, is what potential varietals should we be talking about? Right? I threw out a couple, but if you're on the lighter to medium end of the spectrum, Pinot Noir and Gamay and Sangiovese and maybe Nebbiolo, right, in terms of the appearance and some tannin, perhaps Barbera, right, but it's Barbera you oftentimes might get a little bit more color. A very light Merlot, but when you get to the texture of this, probably not so much, right? So you're kind of heading in that spectrum and getting toward the middle and saying, no, I think we'll back off that. Could be something like Frappato, for example, on the Italian varietal side. So if we were working our way around Italy, right, we could be talking about, we did blind taste once a while back a great wine from Bardolino, which was Corvina based, right? And that was a beautiful, light, elegant wine. So that's sort of in the northern part of Italy. Could go east a little bit, and Pinot Nero, Pinot Noir from up that way. Could certainly go west and deal with a little bit of kind of the Barberas, Dolcettos, and potentially Nebbiolo. As we head kind of more toward the central part of Italy, are we looking at things like Montepulciano and Sangiovese and those grape varietals, and then do we head south and kind of think about, I don't know, like we talked about Frappato, or something maybe from Sicily, something from the volcanic soils, you know, on the heel of the boot, kind of in that realm. Yeah, Sarah, we were all sort of seemingly centering at least starting our thought process with Italy, and let's take a moment to explore why, right? What about this wine sings or suggests Italy? Part the color, part the nose profile, part that acidity, where you have that little bit of texture and some of that tannin that's hanging outside of a super powered expression of texture. Yeah, and just the overall mouthfeel. If we were in Spain, it seems like we would potentially get something with a little bit more richness and a little bit more raisiny notes and a little bit more in concentration. If we were in Portugal, the same idea. And these are broad generalizations, right? And that's what you use to get yourself closer to what you think the wine is. You could have some lightness like this, say maybe in Blaufränkisch or Blauburgunder, something like that from Austria. And yet, I don't know if it would have some of those earthy notes. Maybe. So for me, it seems pretty confidently that we're on the European side of things, but not necessarily a given. I could try to make a case for other places in the world, but it seems like I'd be drawn back to Italy. And so try it again, and let's talk a little bit about fruit, earth, and wood, and see if we can't help ourselves figure out what, again, it might not be. So if we're saying this has a whole bunch of, you know, American oak that we kind of pick up, and we should think about Rioja. Maybe it's an older Rioja. It's interesting. I think you could make a really compelling argument for Pinot Noir, but for maybe the tannins. And gosh, those tannins are really beautiful. Yeah, Veronica, I'm heading in that direction too. Veronica just noted that at 20 minutes the wine changed. It usually does. It's a remarkable experience to have done this. I was talking with some yesterday. I think we've done this at least 120 20 times, something like that. And so having had that experience with tasting a wine for about a half an hour for that many times at about 20 something minutes, 22 minutes, totally changes. And sometimes we see an emergence of another dimension, another layer of character. We see the wine open up and it breathes and it becomes a bit more of itself. We've definitely had that experience where something lighter or a bit more restrained was, let's just say it was light to medium bodied and had mostly tannic experience, but not a lot of body or volume, and we watched it go like to medium, medium plus as it opened, just so that the rest of the wine kind of came around the tannin and the acid and filled out. And that's sort of what's happening here. I'm getting more volume, not necessarily more density, right? It's not heavier, but it is expanding a bit more in the palate. Rebecca, ooh, a Zinfandel. Nice thought there. A lighter Zinfandel, very possible. Very much on the red fruit side of things. It seems a bit tart and higher in acid than I would expect, but I've had some really compelling lighter Zinfandels that are made with this style in mind, this profile, I should say. I'm doing what I've always told all of you not to do, which is to get caught in one thought process, and I'm still just stuck working in Italy. Now, you could have a Zinfandel, or let's say, for example, a Primitivo coming from Italy. I think you'd get a little bit more concentration, a little bit richness, a little more richness. So I think this is kind of more coastal or more northern in Italy, if we're in Italy. But if you're in Zin, Rebecca, are you thinking kind of California Zin? Pretty much the leading opportunity to talk about Zin, yes. Candy, to your question, are you getting distinctive varietal traits? Not like utterly distinctive. What would be equivalent of sort of some rose, some notes of kind of the cherry quality, and we'd be thinking about Nebbiolo. If we got black pepper and animal kind of roasted meats element, we'd be thinking a little bit about Syrah. There's a lot of me that likes the idea of something Pinot Noir like, but I'm not entirely sure about like the Sangiovese idea. Maybe should consider something like the Corvina from Valpolicella. So Valpolicella would have Corvina and Rondinella and Molinara and a couple of other potential varietals, but so it would be light, bright, but with some texture and some reddish character. I would say it's very difficult for me to pin down any particular characteristics as being real signifiers of one specific varietal. I think there's a number of notes here that you could make a case or apply to a number of different varietals. Yeah, Rebecca, I'm not convinced on Pinot either, and I agree. It's got a little bit more texture, a little bit more weight, and as this is opening up here at the 24th minute, there's a little heat coming. There's a little bit more alcohol showing, and it's definitely not presenting like Cabernet would. And so we are between those two things. So where do you get something that's got reddish fruit, little plum notes, a touch of earth, and a touch of tannin, but not aggressive? And we had smelled wood. There's a tannin quality here, and then there's a little drying sensation that's kind of maybe a little bit of a woodsy quality on this palate too. But with this texture and this weight, you wouldn't have added a bunch of wood. I'm kind of stumped. Another factor, which is an inappropriate factor from the wine evaluation side, but it is not an appropriate factor from the deductive process. This bottle I'd be surprised to find, say, Pinot Noir in this bottle. It's a Bordeaux-shaped bottle. It's got the high shouldered sides as opposed to the sloped Burgundy-sided bottle. Sarah, it reminds you of French Gamay. I like that too. The texture, again, the tannin, maybe a bit much, but I was trying to search. I tasted a wine last week, and I think it was Gamay that had a little bit of structure to it that just kind of surprised. It had a little oomph. Certainly the color is there. A riper expression of Gamay. Maybe it's an Alpine kind of Pinot Noir. Savoie, Jura kind of up into Switzerland. But again, the bottle, it doesn't seem like it would be appropriate for that. Maybe it's, is it something like Cabernet Franc? Is it something Bordeaux in orientation? It doesn't strike me that way. Anybody have a strong opinion or feels strong enough about their opinion to throw out an idea of where they would go with this? Old world, new world? And from there, where would you place it? Varietal? For me, the texture, the tannin, the acidity all take me to the old world. Veronica Gamay they could have a floral note for sure. Not a major one, not that I typically pick up a lot of. You get one classic tell on some Gamay, sort of more of a tutti fruity kind of fruit profile. But there are some great ones that have more ripeness and don't have that sort of sweet, sour kind of quality to the fruit. And it could have an earthen note to it too. Kevin's drinking this one, working hard at reaching the bottom of the glass for the full evaluatory experience. Yeah, Rebecca, I'm with you there. Old world then. So, old world, I don't think this is Spain. I don't think this is Portugal. I don't think this is French. Although you could make an argument that we should talk about Southern Burgundy, i.e. Gamay. I don't know that this is Austrian, but maybe it is sort of Eastern Alpine French, kind of Burgundy area. Maybe it's Italian, more northern, like a Valpolicella. Candy up. I've been swaying a flag in Italy too. So I think if I'm pressed, and we will be pressed, or I will press myself and invite you to press yourselves to come to some kind of conclusion. It's not one that I walk away feeling like I really nailed it. I think we just kind of worked our way toward a fair estimation of it. And the wine, I feel like it's still opening. It's still giving more. And maybe it would reveal more in more time with maybe a decanting or a couple, maybe it just needs actual aging. California Cab Franc or Old World? Interesting. Cab Franc from the Old World, Cab Franc from California, I think you get more body, much more body, and maybe a hint of a pyrazine note, or some kind of green note. But to you, the question of is there a varietal character that's jumping out? Like if we had gotten pyrazine, some element of green, some herbaceous qualities, sweet fennel, something like that, that you might think more about Cabernet Franc. And I didn't find it here, right or wrong. So, yeah, all right. Portugal could give you, Natalie, Portugal is got, generally speaking, a little bit more structure, a little bit more power, a little bit darker color, generally speaking. Maybe like Mencia, we're hanging out Is Mencia. Mencia up in what is essentially kind of northwestern Spain, really close to the northern border of Portugal. Could be Mencia. Mm. Just got a lot of high acid. Really high acid. Wow. I don't think I'm thinking of the right grape, but I'm kind of headed toward centering on something like Valpolicella that has Corvina in it, and tartness and brightness and fruit and a little tannin. Yeah, Natalie, you can definitely see the Douro River kind of presenting those types of wine that have that concentration and texture, the varietals that are used to make port made into a dry, still table wine. I think this has got a little bit more lightness, or it doesn't have quite the same stuffing or intensity that would take me to Portugal. So I'm going to stick to northeastern Italy then, but I'm not convinced that I've gotten the right spot. You know, even like, I'm sorry to back up, I just tried to stake a claim. We've got this wonderful wine from the Foradoris, the Elisabetta Foradori, it's Tiraldigo, like northern Alto Adige, kind of Trentino area in Italy, in the Dolomites, up on hills that are in cool climate, kind of mountainous region. Something like that might be interesting. Yeah, I think I like that more than I like Valpolicella. Valpolicella would have just like this easy, slightly more plush quality, I think, about this. And there's a tension here that's coming from some kind of elevation or coolness. So, all right, it's a long shot, but I'm going to say Tiraldigo then, from northern Italy, Alpine-ish area. Young, 2019, 2020, something like that, 2 to 4 years old. Natalie and Julie are throwing out Alicante Boucher. Alicante, I've tasted a few that are in differing ranges, but some of them have been much deeper and richer. Kristen, I'm glad you like it. It's like a cab you had in Fredericksburg, Texas. Oh, a Texas wine? Sarah, yeah, the Jura would be interesting. Northern Italy could make sense too, yeah. So I think that's where I'm going to stick, just because I don't know fully and I'm not 100% confident, but I would be delighted to be on either side of that argument. From a Cabernet side of things, I'm not getting the currants, any kind of leathery element. I'm not getting potential for some pyrazine, for cigar box, things that have a darker kind of profile to them too. I'm not getting that here. This is more on the red side of things with respect to some tartness and some high acidity. If this was Cabernet, then it would be an earlier pick and not quite as expressive as Cabernet tends to be. So that could be how it would achieve that, I think. Candy just peaked and you're surprised. Okay, well, good. I'm not going to peek. I'm just going to review. But 2019, 2 to 4 year old, northern Italian, kind of mountainous red that I'll call Tiraldigo. But from Candy's just note there, I'm thinking I'm definitely wrong. But we'll see. Oh, what? That's awesome. How cool. So that's so cool. Wow. All right. This is Three Captains Red. This is from Bill Hatch up at Zephaniah and his team. This is a wine that is third Chamberson and Cabernet Franc, Cabernet Sauvignon, Petit Verdot. And I missed all those elements. I think too, I'm feeling this now out of the paper bag. Mine's a little cold. Not to try to create an excuse. Oh, excuse me. Our fire alarm just went off. Bear with me a moment here, guys. I have to go take care of an alarm. I will see you next Thursday.